when I was a child, and I met Dr. Shirley when I was 5. I was younger than actually portrayed here. I was the older of the two for the kids, but from then, having my father meet him and how it changed my father and how he taught us to live our lives. So it's been resonating with me my whole life, and I always want to tell the story. And it's as important now as it was then. I think it's educational and showing people, let's not forget how things were, but let's look how things are now. And by just two people talking to each other, spending time with each other, you realize how we're all the same. So
I agree. And I think in this story, you got a situation where two people who seem to be very different, so different that it's extremely unlikely that they're going to become friends. And it does take some time before there's some mutual respect there and understanding. But whether they want to learn about each other and come to understand each other's points of view or not, they are forced to. It's either, unless Tony quits or gets fired, or the trip ends prematurely, they're going to get to know each other whether they like it or not. And inevitably, when you're in that situation, it doesn't matter who you are. You may not end up being friends or really good friends, but you're going to learn something about the other person and about yourself, And I think, obviously, it's about many things. And I think that when a story works this well and tackles something as complicated as race relations, socio-economic differences, it's a period piece, it's ambitious musically, thematically, but it looks deceptively simple. It's very hard to do that. But I do think that generally, going to what you said, it's, anybody can get along with anybody. It's a matter of having the right circumstances and wanting to. Showing some interest, taking the first step. It's like that line that Tony says, the world's full of people afraid to make the first move. I mean, it's an important thought, an important line. And I think also this story tells you, here's Nick Bell long ago who brought this, he had this idea for 30 years, 25, I don't know. And since, and eventually it ends up, Brian Curry, Pete Farrelly, and they all work on it together. And for us, commercially, it was great because they were on the set all the time. And we could, just pick your brain, and it was great. But it doesn't really matter who is telling the story. That's another danger that we get into in the effort to try to get along and make sure that everybody is counted, that everybody's voice is counted. Sometimes people come to think that certain groups, certain people have a higher right or a monopoly on the right to try to get along, to try to understand each other, to try to put it into a story. Anybody can talk about anybody can talk to anybody can listen to anybody. And when they do, anything can happen, as we see in this movie.
And I think it was then even like Peter Farrelly, the director, I think what he did with the script with Brian and then with Pete, and then the challenge of, okay, we have a subject matter that's kind of heavy-handed if it's going a certain way. So how do we get a message across but keep it moving and keep it entertaining and keep it light? There's, you can tell that this story in a lot of different ways, but Pete really was on top of us with the script, and then when he made the film, to mix in the humor and the fun and then the heavy part, so that you learn about the Green Book, but you're not hitting on the head with the Green Book. But you see what people went through in the South during that time. So I think Peter, we owe so much to him for the way he balanced this film and how he directed it.
And who expected Pete Farrelly to do this? Seriously, yes, he had an advantage, he had a leg up in terms of helping ensure that the timing of the comedy that's there, the situational comedy that worked. But I have to say, I don't know how many people, they've seen the trailer. You've seen it, but people have seen the trailer, which is entertaining, it's good. Like, okay, I get it, buddy move, but it's Pete Farrelly, okay, it's gonna be maybe at best fun, you know? But they don't realize how profound and how complex a story is put together. I don't think it was, Pete could probably try his hand at just about anything after this. We should have that right. And I don't know, maybe he'll become our time's Preston Sturgis or something.